Hello, and welcome to Jarviskjir Mother's Love. It's boys' night, lads. On Underdark tour.
Ali, I didn't tell you, I identify as a non-binary now. So
okay, that's fine.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
We are happy to have Dean back for once with his player's guide.
I would have liked it if Will, you'd started that sentence by saying, by the way, Ollie.
I've been thinking about that a lot, yeah. When like
it's kind of weird. Whenever someone says "by the way" now, I'm like, yes. You've called.
Yeah.
You want to talk to me about something? Let's talk.
A little bit of business.
Someone in Scott's game is called One.
Yeah.
That's confusing. That's confusing. Right there.
There was a time in like Scott's games where there were like 3 characters named the same thing, and I don't remember what it was. Like between several games. Yeah, I'm like, I wouldn't allow that just for confusion's sake. Anyway.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing? I'm very tired.
I'm also very tired. I'm very tired. I'm very hot. I'm
in a blanket, so I can't complain about that.
You're in a blanket? Shit.
I have cold feet.
Neil, you are...
whatever.
That was a reaction to Ollie.
Dean, you cutting words to my sneeze.
Oh! Fair. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it, because we're already starting a little bit late.
It's Will's fault.
It's multiple parties' fault, one of them being Will. You are down in the Underdark, where the session regains is you're in the basement of your little cottage hideout. You decided to make, basically live in the cellar of it, and use the fact that the farm homestead is ruined, basically to your advantage. Like, no one's gonna give it more than a glance. Which so far has been successful, because a large troop of the war party that's meant to attack the service has been looking for you after you killed Hiraga the Flame Walker. It was a hard fight where you only just survived her getting out of her pocket dimension using several twists and tricks of magic.
It was really useful having a bard who can use Dimension Door.
And, yeah, the whole point, you have Riley with you right now as well, who's been very useful. So the question really is, with you down here in this hideout, what's the plan? I know at the end of last week you were basically saying, we need to get into the city somehow.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. We need to get into the city.
So,
plan was go to like the opposite gate and try and sneak through that.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't go in near the one near the war camp because they might expect that.
You're not going through the north, you're gonna roll around to the south.
Perhaps. Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to sort out before you start heading out that way? Okay.
No, I think we just do it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, respectful to not have any dilly-dallying for once in this party. You can start heading out to the south. You know, you do adopt your disguises. Most likely. Now, Riley, do you adopt disguise all the time? Because you actually need to use spell slots for your disguise.
Right. I don't do it all the time. I only, we're walking, I'm assuming we're paying attention. So if anything seems like, oh crap, I need to be in disguise, I will quickly don the disguise.
Okay, well, the thing is, unless you want to basically take side paths and go through the forest routes, you know, the area around Narashiro, this fungal forest, is farmland for both fungal lumber and food and fabrics and all sorts of things, right? Which means the main roads are trade roads. Quite quickly as you start going around the roads which I think the only person to be able to sort of think about it in such a three-dimensional way would probably be Riley, who knows a lot about the Underdark. Like, they kind of are in circles and rings around Narashiro. These very, very old pathways. But they're being used by all sorts of traders, going towards the trading hubs that you visited so much beforehand. So you would either be in hiding or in disguise. It's really up to you guys whether you want to use the main roads or go a slower route kind of through the forests.
I would recommend a slower route through the forest just to not be seen, seeing as they've seen our faces and know that we might have killed their leader and or something like that.
The only downside is to going through the forest is it's slower, and we don't know what rate word will get to the other gates.
Yeah.
If they even enter, because they might be like, no, they're definitely around here now. We're definitely going to search and find them around here. And then after they don't find them, they might be like, ah, fuck, we've lost them. Send word to all the gates to keep an eye out for these people.
Yeah,
Which
if
is
the
the way
message
the way
takes time to make its way to the other gates, getting in before they go into lockdown effectively might be advantageous,
That's smart.
but risky.
So is it fast or slow? Or, well, it's medium or slow. You could also travel faster. You know, as always, it just gives you basically disadvantages on the perception checks you'd have to make during it.
Right. Well, Gilwyn is a human that kind of sticks out too, yeah?
Oh, that's very
Yeah,
true.
you're usually playing him as a slave.
It did kind of get us boned last week. so
It
maybe
does
we
get
should
you
go
boned.
slow
Like
way
as
through the
you've been spending time in the farmland, you do see a lot of slaves, and some slaves who are not chained up in the same way as others. They are just clearly a lower class citizen, and they usually are running the other slaves. But they usually have some way of signifying that. Nope. Usually wearing metal clothing that kind of symbolizes chains on the wrist and the neck, while not actually being chains. But you imagine, you know, some sort of spell weaver could probably quickly turn that into shackles, which would make sense of how the Drow can operate things. You get an outfit like that for Gilwyn, maybe he'd blend in a little better.
Here's a question. It's prestidigitation. I can create a trinket. Could I perhaps create a trinket that looks like something like this around my wrist?
Yeah, you could make, you know, like a manacle essentially. Yeah.
Okay, then I would make 2 of those on my wrists just constantly every time it goes out. An hour later, boom, boom again for me. And I'd look over at Gil and say, "Can you do this?"
I do the same thing.
It's like
There we
the
go.
always forgotten ability of predestination to actually make an object for a very small
It's
period
so
of time.
good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. Prestidigitation is a very underrated spell. It's so amazing. You can do so much stuff with it.
I'm not sure it's underrated. It's like on every spell list ever.
I think it was underrated for a short period of time amongst, you know, basic bitch D&D folk.
Yeah.
Well, I just mean underrated in the
elevated.
sense that everyone has it, no one uses
Yeah,
it.
no one uses it to its full
Yeah.
potential, quite
It's
possibly.
basically just used as a power hose most of the time.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely fine. You, like I said, you're traveling. Do you want to travel fast or regular?
regular because we don't want to run into any mess.
You don't want to
Nasty
run.
beasties.
You don't want to look suspicious running around as well. Just take the road as it comes. And like I said, this is a trading road. It's used quite frequently. Most of the other people you see on the road are riding those large beetles in which you have a dead one in your little farm base. These beetles ride incredibly high to the extent that they basically take up the whole road and they just walk over you. And that just seems to be what is regularly expected. They're such a large size that, you know, a lot of the cargo is stored on their underbelly, and they kind of lumber past you at no great speed, just being able to carry an awful lot. Occasionally the rider is not even a drow, very clearly a slave who's been trusted with quite an important job. The other peoples you would see would be the occasional couple of people walking somewhere, or pack of slaves being led around. But you know, it's a populated place for what you might have expected. You know, it's not actually as quiet as you might have expected. When you get around to the south side of the city, Waji, you're basically going round the city. So what you see on the city walls of Narashiro as you get close, these very tall, decorated walls on what is basically a vertical city. The walls don't go all the way up. There's still towers and spires that stretch above it. But what you see is there's many bridges and walkways from the walls that kind of often twist and loop and join up to the roads that you would be traveling on. Some of the bridges are actually held up by statues, most usually of the Drow form, usually the Drow female form, although some are very different. As you get much more southerly, one of those bridges that you decide this is how you're going to enter the city on, is straight up being held up by the fungal trees themselves. It's been built into them, with some supporting, but mostly, you know, the trees have been weaved into it almost with some kind of druidic magic or something you would expect. Considering you guys kind of know a little bit about, well, Melody wasn't a druid, but she was. Weird situation. Those bridges themselves are usually quite populated, you know. There's other people coming and going. There's a lot of Drow around, and sometimes those other people aren't even Drow. But you've started to see some of the other Underdark races already in your explorations of these places. How do you want to approach getting into the city? The gates, so another wrinkle that might affect this, the gates do enter the city at different points because it's a vertical city, you know. They kind of loop up and join, and imagine if someone's going to have a hell making this in City Skylines, you know, but it does all work. It's been here for thousands of years.
I guess we go into one of the lower rungs of the city.
Well, I mean, that might... Firstly, I would say we want Riley to be disguised as a Drow, as the only person who speaks Undercommon. Yep. That is logical.
Yep.
They have a lot of respect for Serena as what she is. I think it would actually be more suspicious if we were trying to go into a lower one. If we've got effectively 3 Drow and an ascended of what was it, Serpent Goddess?
Serpent Goddess, something along those lines.
Yeah, something along those lines.
You know, just in general, in Faiths in Jarviskjir, those terms are usually pretty broad and can be adjusted and called by many names. You know how it is. Yeah,
so going in middle, at least a middle, and we've got an apparent slave.
And
going in
seemingly a human slave is quite important.
Yeah, going in at least a middle, if not slightly higher than middle gate, would possibly actually draw less attention, because the sort of party we are, it would be more expected.
I accept that logic. I agree. To a middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You agree to a middle? Fair. Okay. I mean, that seems pretty reasonable. As you're sort of going up this middle rung, it seems that, just from a glance, from where you can see inside the city, because there are almost these grand windows that deliberately let you see in as you're approaching. This is sort of similar to some parts of Thundral. It's designed to be impressive to approach, you know. Similar to the gateway you entered, the actual gate itself is a work of art, and the Drow elves are not ashamed to put this extreme amount of effort and detailing into something as simple as a doorway, you know. It seems that this sort of area of the city is a mercantile one. You know, as you're approaching, the walkway spreads out. There's one of those large carrier beetles, seemingly the rider, who appears to be a wood elf or maybe a half elf slave. It's like they've been pulled over and someone's checking their notes. There is this drow guard in this samurai-esque armor flicking through papers as this slave looks incredibly nervous. And the beetle is just kind of like occasionally moves slightly, as you would expect a beast of burden to do so. There are a few samurai guard at the gate itself, and when you would approach, one would put a hand out and would say, "Who goes there? And what business do you have entering the city?"
So I'm realizing that Serena's not in disguise at all, right?
Serena is just Serena.
Serena is just Serena, exactly.
Damn, I'm like, damn, she's such a presence that I don't want them to look at her like at all, because just in case word has gotten out. So I would step forward and be like, "We have business to attend to in the city. Is it illegal to enter?"
We're going to need your names and purpose. And you actually see this guard. They're wearing a lighter sort of samurai armor. It would be some sort of medium armor, lots of fabric rather than metals. Is kind of weaving a little bit of magic in his hands, a kind of blue, but kind of turns to a hot red.
I would say, "My name's Rie," as I put my hand up very theatrically. He points over at
He does not
the
react.
slave. He said, "Okay, yeah, I figure it's not." I point over to the obvious slave and say, "This is my slave. I am assuming his name's not important."
He does not react.
Does he react to that?
No.
It's Simon.
You will speak when you are spoken to.
Sorry.
Your name's not important. He points over to the other drow with me and says, "And this is."
My name is Jiang. Do you need family names as well?
If you are of a family, your name would be important to recognizing
Not-
your identity.
Not of note, unfortunately.
There is like a
Yeah, we're-
genuine nod to that. Like that seems to be something that maybe this guy can relate to.
Yeah. We got a couple of others with us. Again, working for us. Not very important.
He does glance at Serena, and that ball of magic turns into the form that vaguely resembles a bird. That he kind of launches, and it launches up to one of the nearby sort of towers that sprout up from the city walls, where you can quite clearly see it's not that far away, around 90 feet or so. That bird reaches a guard who is standing on the wall at that. Takes a moment, then the bird moves forward furthermore and furthermore to other parts. And he says, "But a moment. We must check that there is no suspicion under your names."
No,
What?
absolutely.
What sort of magic was that? It looked like the tales we hear about surface elves. Not very us, you know?
It allows us to transmit information very quickly.
Let the man do his job. He's just making sure we're good. When we get in there, we don't want some riffraff coming in.
I'm just interested, all right? He understands. Sometimes
Okay.
you want to go a little bit above and beyond your day-to-day boring work. Right?
Oh, I mean, sure. He's gonna let us in anyway. We're great. We're great people.
Can you
How
give
long-
me a persuasion roll there, Riley?
I mean, can it be deception because we are not great?
You are deceiving. Yeah, that's totally fair.
I'm great in one sense of the word,
I would say we're all great in some sense of words.
other than Simon. Simon's not great.
Simon's just. The guard does relax. At never point does he reach for his weapons or anything like that. In a couple of minutes, you see that bird return, and it kind of rests on his arm, and it doesn't seem to make any noise other than sort of this ambient magical noise for dissipating. And he gives you all a, yeah, that's just this tiny bird goes wah. And then dissipates, and he nods and will allow you to pass, and will say to Jiaying, like, considering your forgiveness by the current shogunate, You are of note. And then we'll allow you to pass. The gate kind of, very large gate, moves without a sound, allowing you to enter the city. As with a lot of surface cities, but more so with this particular entrance, it opens up into a marketplace. But it's a very different sort of atmosphere than you would get in a marketplace at Northenden or Tran, where there would be lots of loud traders barking prices and sales and making deals. This is a very quiet marketplace. It's very quiet Drow understanding where there's noise. There is noise of conversations that happens, but it is so much less than you would expect in a market like this. There's a little bit of music that plays out from taverns that are kind of built into the spirey-like buildings, in some way similar to Bastillion. And this marketplace is a lot of tarps and tents, some open shops, and a lot of people sort of silently offering their wares. This is when you really do see more than just Drow. There's a lot of Drow here, and all of these Drow are dressed pretty well, unless they are some sort of guard or soldier. And you see a lot of Drow who are very clearly being shadowed by a bodyguard. But you also see the occasional one of those deep dwarves who are trying their best to not be sort of clumsy in this very delicate place. You see one dwarf in particular making a very careful note to walk over the trains of people's dresses and robes and things like that. You see another one of those deep gnomes, these almost pallid, drained of color gnomes. A couple of them are running a few stalls selling crystals and things like that. You even see a mind flayer who is drifting through the marketplace. And I say drifting because it does not look like they are walking. They kind of carry themselves ever so slightly off the ground, despite their robes kind of trailing on the ground slightly.
If you slow it down to slow motion, you can see his feet like.
The humanoid in form, but tall. This is when you do notice that Drow are pretty short on average. You know, shorter than average people on the surface. Indira blends right in. But this guy towers over a lot of them, which allows you to see just the kind of grotesque, slightly glossy, purplish, greyish skin that comes down into tendrils and tentacles that do slightly move, and clothing that seems made of bone and fabric weaved together, and just seems to be shopping like anyone else, and most people seem to be deliberately paying them no mind.
Fair enough. Great. A brain monster.
I feel like Gilwyn couldn't help but stare. He's very interested.
It's a simple reaction.
Riley wouldn't say anything. She would just be like wide-eyed, like, okay, uncomfortable, fucking weird.
Vale would get close to Riley and be like, "What now?"
We wanted to get into the city. I got us into the city. What do you mean? What now?
Right. Yes. What now? We're in the city.
We have to figure out where the next person on this list is.
We find a base of operations.
It might not be as easy in the city. They seem quite selective about who they let in.
That is why we do it first before attempting anything else. If we have to go down to lower levels, we have time to do that today. We find something, an abandoned building perhaps, although judging by how they are building up, that might be quite difficult. We find somewhere to hide, at the very least, because we cannot keep disguises up permanently. We attract too much attention.
Agreed. We should probably do that.
Maybe we could simply buy rooms on this run. Private rooms.
You do have the gold.
Also works. We have a lot of gold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we could possibly use that gold to get some connections very quickly. people spending lots of money, while it draws attention to them, can also distract others by the fact that they're spending lots of money.
We could I still think it would probably be wise to find somewhere out of the public eye to base ourselves, but at least for the time being, we could certainly buy room.
Well, where do you think in a metropolis like this will be out of the public eye? Even the sewers may be crawling with vagabonds. In a runged city like this, the sewers are almost certainly.
Yeah, I mean, like, this marketplace is kind of on, you know, a walkway sort of platform, and you can see deeper down into the city. It's almost placed deliberately. But yeah, that would probably be the correct opinion. I mean, you've been in places like Bastilian where it's similar.
Then perhaps rather than a lower area, we could seek out those likely to sympathize with us. They seem to have mistaken me for one of their ascended of the serpent goddess. Perhaps seek out a believer of hers that is has rather more space than good sense, and seeing if she will put us up for a time.
Well, that may work if they have been subjected to an actual ascended of the serpent goddess, and perhaps it will be less effective. The more we use you as a serpent goddess, the more we risk someone actually having met one and saying there is a difference. More so, I do not really see the point between having a private room here and a private room in someone's home. Yes, there may be fewer people, but the risk still remains.
Or the other alternative is we could find a recluse of some kind. I'm sure they exist, eccentric noble folk with large estates with few people, and clear out their property, as it were, and borrow it.
Finding a noble recluse might work, though I would prefer to find someone, as you say, sympathetic, and then needlessly murder them all. I mean, I know they are Drow, but still, right? You don't have to butcher the snake as well as cutting off all of its many heads.
I merely think that acting so brazen, I mean, we do not fit in this city. We do not know how to comport ourselves. We do not know how to act. No matter how well we attempt to blend in, if we are around those who could expose us at any point so regularly, we are more likely to slip up. That is my concern. Which is why I would prefer at least somewhere to let down our guard.
Well, at the very least, I think that we are too many. I think we are traveling with 5 of us, and that's just wrong. There's too many of us. We need to find a place quick, and just hang out for a little bit to decide who's going out to scout and how many of us and how we can do it without being caught.
Ollie, is it like normal practice for slave owners to be walking around with their slaves?
You do see that occasionally.
Okay.
There's even some slaves walking around seemingly without owners, and there's also a slave stage where they're being sold that you have to, drag Indira away from. But yeah, it seems normal enough,
Right.
But if we do this and we decide we're scouting, we need to make sure we treat Gilwyn like garbage. We were treating him way too nice last time, and it blew our cover. We need to treat him like garbage. That way we don't have to pretend to kill him.
Agreed.
I fucking hate this place.
Serena's tail slaps your legs, knocking them out from under you.
Thank you.
There's a sort of echo of gentle chuckles from folk who saw that. Right.
So perhaps we buy quick rooms till we come up with a place to go.
Yeah.
Okay. This being a bit of a market entrance, just like any city, there's always somewhere to stay right near a gate. And in this place, there's no exception. You know, you walk up to this inn. It seems much more of an inn than a tavern. With red light illuminating from it, because why can't your inn serve also as a brothel? Rooms here would straight up be 2 gold a night per person. You could double up, triple up, whatever your plan is.
No,
Or
that's 2
if you
gold
want to
for
buy,
Serena.
or if you want to buy 1 big room for everyone. But no, you're kind of thinking that Serena's just like, there's the gold.
Yeah, Serena's already paid the gold, got the
There's the
key.
I would offer up the gold for us to all share a room. I'd be like, I'll pay for. How long do you want? A week? 3 days? What do you think?
3 days should be fine to begin sorting out our business.
Puts
So
down 6 gold to counter and says, "We need a room."
They will happily, like the attendant will happily pay you there. Quite clearly, also a slave, you know, or just wearing slave garb, but they are Drow, and you know, there's these kind of very delicate, tiny chains that go down their clothing. And it's like, and would you be wanting company for the night? And then you kind of look behind her and see, in this hallway, all manner of Drow men in alluring garb, waiting for their chance.
Are there any particularly fine specimens? I should point out that Serena has still paid for her own
Oh,
room.
absolutely, Serena. Yeah, you won't be able to understand a word they say, but I don't
No,
stop you.
but I can get what's going on. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Are there? I presume there are at least a couple of fine specimens.
Oh yes.
No words, only fuck.
It happened last week. You know, you understand the language of body language.
Exactly. Serena would use would use the same thing she was doing last week with the whisper to Riley, to be like, that one over there, the particularly attractive one.
That's a 4 gold banger.
Riley would say, "We want your ugliest man," to her.
Oh, you bastard!
You're ugly. I want an ugly guy with nasty feet. The grimier, the better.
Will's character comes out.
She takes a long look at Gilwyn and says, "Yes, I can understand your tastes." In Undercommon.
Yeah.
And
I smile, not knowing what she's saying.
quite quickly...
Oh, they're looking at me.
Yeah, you know, you hand over a couple of silver, and brought up with you will be a quite scarred high elf.
And I'll bring that. I'd say to Serena, "He's yours for the night."
I will remember this, Riley.
I'm sure you will.
That said, I am sure I can get a form of amusement out of this, regardless.
Very
Uncomfortable.
He very meekly will like follow you up the stairs, where you like go up to like all of you in one room, and Serena just turns into another. And this really is, you know, a hotel. You actually have like, okay, it's a room for like 2 people, but all of you can quite comfortably stay in this space because it's a Drow space, and they really respect having, despite being quite a dense city, having that personal space. No bed or anything like that, but soft cushions, soft throws, chairs, desks, bookshelves, decanter of liquor, mirrors, bath. It really has everything you're going to need, despite the fact that you're trying to infiltrate a city and kill its leaders. So, I mean, maybe you need some more than just a bath, but still. And also has a window that does look out over that sort of section that kind of gives you a view both up and down into the city, where, you know, light no longer travels from the crystals above.
Well, that went well.
Yeah, we got a room. Serena got a man.
There's kind of a ambient laughter and noise that carries through this place. You know, there's just the sound of rich noble folk enjoying themselves that carries through the walls.
Yes, I feel a little guilty for the poor fellow. I wonder what Indira thinks.
I don't think often, she says.
Ollie, I should ask for kind of scarred high elf. Was it, because high elves normally, obviously, scars are like high elven culture looks down on scars and such like. Was he actually genuinely like ugly, or was it just sort of like the scarring made him?
I mean, it's very rarely for an elf is ugly via
that's what I'm thinking, because he's actually not so much.
quite like it's layers and layers of whip scars, burn scars.
In that case, you would likely hear throughout the night. You would probably, or for at least a while, you would hear Serena taking other forms of stress relief and pleasure in the form of the occasional scream and such like.
Okay.
Wow, she's torturing him.
Basically.
Mm-hmm. She paid for it.
I want to get out of this.
She's going to get
place.
her money's worth.
Get me out of here, please.
Wait till Indira finds out about this.
Also, I'm entirely blaming Riley on this. If she'd actually got her a decent man, then it would have been entirely different form of stress relief.
Well, Riley got you the worst man so that maybe we could free them, man. But, I mean, it's your own.
Serena is not that good a person.
Fair enough.
All right, what's the plan? You could rest here if you wanted. I mean, you haven't been traveling incredibly long, but you know it's kind of also up to you. You know, there's no day-night cycle here, so really, whenever you can sleep, you should probably take it.
So they say that being noble is good, and originally Serena said that maybe taking on a local noble would be a good idea. However, this hotel seems to be full of them. And a traveling noble is much easier to impersonate than a local. Perhaps we find a way to, I don't know, steal a paper or two so we have a new identity?
It's not a bad idea. I already have done so to speak. Jiang's death was not known of. He died somewhere that I find it very unlikely that his body will be found.
Right. Maybe we don't even have to kill them. Maybe if we're good at charming them, we can get their papers and they won't even know. And then when they're leaving the city going to another, they reach for identification. They don't even have it, but we have it and we can possibly use that. I'm not like Serena. I don't just want to kill to kill.
There's a scream. Kind of echoes a little bit from that direction.
Vale actually shudders.
I would actually point out I might actually be helping our disguise as well if they think I'm just a sadistic.
You bring that guy back in worse condition than he came, and there won't be any suspicion.
Exactly.
Why else would you pay for the least attractive and least expensive of them all?
So basically, this is entirely Riley's fault.
Not true.
Well,
who do I belong to?
So far, Indira.
Okay.
I mean, you don't think Indira would let anything like that happen to you?
No, I'm just wondering if we get stopped and they ask, you know.
Oh, yes, Indira.
Okay.
So, next up, we need to find another target.
Yes. Which target do we want to find first?
Perhaps I could have a read of Jiang's journal, see whether there is anything mentioned about the others at all before we move on. Perhaps during that time you could attempt to get hold of a paper or a name or two.
Absolutely.
Providing they have papers, I didn't actually see any papers being produced for
The
us.
slave that you passed was definitely had some sort of papers.
Okay.
From you can give me an insight actually for that, because you've been to many places and seen many ways of basically dealing with passports, and from your experience, only place that's really been doing passports is Goldport, some and mercantile trade cities like Tron, but even then you don't really need one to enter. But no, you can't connect to the dots there, unfortunately.
Oh, Gilwin,
Yes.
I owe you 400 gold. Just like add it in.
He's been holding gold for you.
Okay.
No, I've not been holding it for you.
Oh,
I
because we-
actually owe you this debt.
Yeah, we got a lot of money from killing the person last week, so you should add 4,400 gold to your amount, Gil.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All the gold
Holy.
makes Gilwin happy.
But
I'm the
obviously
richest slave in the
I should
world.
hold on to this for you.
You should definitely actually hold on to my
Yeah, I will.
coins.
Because it doesn't make sense for you to have it. Don't worry. I got this.
I would say to Vale, as I'm like getting ready to walk out, I'll try to grab a paper, but while you study who might be closest, I wouldn't mind going after the mad priestess or whoever that mad. They're crazy, so I'd rather deal with crazy than strategic like we just dealt with. That was super like ugh. I'd rather deal with crazy. Crazy's my kind of people. And she puts on kind of like a awkward smile.
The mad priestess is potential. Jying is linked to her. That would be a way in. He was a Ronin and forgiven by the priestess herself. His name carries some weight.
I mean, that just answers the question for us. I think that's it.
She appears to be somewhat higher ranked than the others, if this piece of paper is to be believed, however.
I mean, we thought that the last person was going to be a man, so...
I mean, this is true, but like, look at the artist's jawline here. I mean, like, you know, I know they're not like as clear cut as others, but like, that could easily be either, right?
I don't know. They're all Drow. Drow look like they could be male or female, really.
This is very true on the whole.
I'm guessing they're all women, though. Simple as that.
Let me have a look through the book overnight. Perhaps the Mad Priestess is the best shout. We will see whether Jying has written anything. I know without a doubt he will know something to do with the location of the priestess. But let us see whether he knows anything about someone that might be easier.
Okay, but if I'm going to go grab some information, perhaps I should take the slave with me, and she winks at Gilwin.
I am yours.
She smiles. Come on. She goes walking out.
Okay, you want to basically pick some pockets for someone's passport?
Either pick pockets for someone's passport or go to a place like if there's a tavern attached to where the nobles might be having drink, perhaps start a conversation with one to get an idea of who they are first to see if they're even worth. And
Get
then
Gilwin to spill a drink on her.
As
and
you
then
so
apologize and as you apologize,
that's totally fair.
Try him off.
As you kind of like explore around this hotel a bit more,
Gilwin gets whipped.
following the signage, it is mostly in Undercommon, but it does appear to be not really like sort of like an attached cafe bar, but actually is basically, you know, a room and the balcony connected to that. But you know, this is a Drow building. The balcony is very large and excessive. And you can go down to there where there are a couple of people, not including the bar staff. There is a... some of them are quite clearly travelers who can afford their way. Of the pair of people who look noble, there is someone wearing a drow man wearing straight, like, very shiny garb. The leather of their clothing is very shiny, very well polished, and some of the clothing appears to be incorporating insect chitin of those beetles that you would have seen. You know, you say they have this very particular kind of horn to them, and like they are incorporated into the pauldron of the clothing is wearing, which isn't quite armor, but is sort of that kind of decorated garb that resembles armor that probably won't protect you worth a damn. You know, and they're reading over some papers with a wine glass on one side and kind of a plate that has been a bowl has been eaten from. It's kind of been pushed to the side. Kind of just listening to because you're in such a place here that like kind of the music and noise from the marketplace outside drifts through, and it's kind of a pleasant
It's like the perfect
atmosphere.
spot to be out of the way, but exactly where you need to be. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I would lean into Gillen and say, Indira taught me this one. Goes walking over to this guy and just sits across the table from him.
He his eyes kind of glance up and then back down and then up and then over to Gilwyn, who's probably like standing awkwardly in the doorway, and then we'll turn back to you and we'll say in Undercommon, weirdly enough for a drow to start talking in Undercommon, what is it that you need?
I was, well, hoping to find some company.
He looks over you and gives you a nod, then allow me to be of service.
Your name?
My name is Oku Taniko.
Oku Teniko. It's a lovely name. So your family is the Teniko. I feel like I've heard of them before.
Yes, we maintain the best server beetle companies across the Narashiro Caverns, training, maintaining new techniques of grooming, and even such base things as shell shining. But all things must be done.
Well, you know what? I'm sure a man like you, when he fancies a woman, buys her a drink. But no, I want to be memorable. I'm going to buy you a drink. What would you like?
He would kind of like just motion to the glass wine bottles that are kind of at one point kind of taking up the wall.
I would go over and buy a bottle of wine.
2 gold.
Bring over 2 fresh glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Put them down and start pouring it, and I'll like wave for Gilwyn to come over. My slave, hope you don't mind.
Your slave is human.
Yes.
You must be quite wealthy.
Well, I did buy you a bottle of wine, didn't I?
If you are here, you can afford a bottle of wine for a potential mate. He will kind of pour himself a glass.
Fair. True. So, you staying at the inn, or are you traveling through? Or I mean, I don't
Staying
think you're from
here
here
while I do my business. Yes.
Well, I think what needs to happen is the 2 of us need to get drunk. We need to go back to your room. We need to have relations and make my slave watch.
That's a persuasion check.
Again, I'm stood there just smiling like an idiot.
And you don't understand any of this. Yeah, exactly.
Basically, Gilwyn hasn't changed since he's come back into character.
I forgot to cast
comprehend languages before you came in the room.
Yeah.
You could do it while you're upstairs, maybe. He will kind of drink the wine, take a bit of time, and then say, I think that is agreeable for all parties involved. All parties whose opinions matter.
She looks at him, then looks over at Gilwyn, gives him like a pat on his leg, and says, perfect. You know what? This went over so smoothly. She grabs like one of his old wine glasses and fills it up with like the tiniest sip of wine and hands it to Gilwyn. Be like, I think he's earned that.
You are incredibly kind to your servants.
No, because what I'm going to make him watch later isn't going to be kind at all.
I like cheers.
So I imagine you sit and drink for a bit. Any other more information you want to kind of peel from him while you're drinking?
If I could, I would try to peel maybe his parents' names.
Peel.
You can give me a persuasion for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oop.
I have like cursed double dice happening right now.
My roll 20 like froze. No. Say it ain't so.
It's so.
I like the way you
I have to
beg
wait a
for-
second because it's frozen. I can't do anything about it. You can roll on my sheet for me, Ollie. Oh wait. No, it's still frozen.
I'll roll it. Just give me a sec. It takes
Yeah,
some gymnastics.
I get you.
Persuasion. Oh shit, that's a good modifier.
Yeah.
Hey!
Hey!
He doesn't tell you the name of his parents, but the leader of the family appears to be his eldest sister, which is a woman by the name of Kono.
Oh no.
And he would actually sort of start explaining that, like, he is the youngest born of several, and therefore is in no. He's never going to take lead in this family, so just kind of does the busy work, which is
Fair enough.
He seems to have accepted it. He's quite
That's
old.
fine.
He's in his 500s or just approaching
Oh
them.
my god.
So he's accepted it. Yeah, and seems to have no sign of fading either.
What's the sister's same last name? I didn't know if it worked.
Yes. So what you're seeming to pick up is that the family name is almost like a guild name. You may or may
Okay.
not be related to the family, but you're still of the family, kind of similar to Eberron.
Right, I get you.
He is very much related to his family. Yeah, Taniko.
Taniko.
But he does describe other people who have this name and who doesn't refer to as being family members and things. It seems
Right.
to be, maybe if you ask, it's like, oh, it doesn't work that way where I'm from, and it doesn't seem to consider that strange. It does seem that there are Drow that live in other places that have a different society. Basically, if you work for a family and you're not a slave, you become a part of that family. In most cases. Unless you're working on behalf of something else or whatever, or they want it to remain independent. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only information I would try to get out of him right now. I'd go back to his room and hopefully fuck him into a slumber. And
With
try to steal
Gilwyn
some
watching.
papers. Yeah, with Gilwyn watching. I like set up a chair for Gilwyn in the corner. I say, sorry, mate, and get to what I'm doing.
Do you make?
In
eye
all
contact
fairness,
with them?
I'm very sexy, so you get to see my sexy body. But
Could
you
I
also have to
cast,
see his body.
could I have cast comprehend languages in this?
Yes.
So I can hear the dirty talk. So at least
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely.
good.
You get some entertainment.
He's like writing down notes now.
Why
I see.
don't
That
you-
means yes.
Why don't you give me, let's just say, one sleight of hand check for this whole ordeal? one way or another.
Gets up there. He's like, "I'm ready," and she's just like, "Yeah, I'm done. Go to sleep."
Well, something you immediately would pick up on is that the woman is very much meant to be in charge.
Oh, yeah.
In
Yes,
this whole affair. Something Riley, of course, has picked up on, but Gilwyn is still a little slow to realize.
Sit down. It's like in Gilwing's monologue. What's going on? What are they gonna do? Oh my god.
Wait, my slant. Okay.
Yeah, your sleight of hand.
It's not great.
I didn't know if I had to like secretly cast.
Well, no.
Secretly do something while you're watching.
You do your business, and it's great. This guy might be a bit of a silver fox. He knows what he's doing.
Ooh.
But like, when you're like kind of like getting up to leave, and you think he might be really tired, he's like immediately awake and quite conscious.
Cast
And-
sleep on his ass.
I don't have sleep. Do you have sleep?
No.
And it would straight up be a sort of, what are you doing? You back off to the travels?
I don't have to travel right away. Are you prepared to go for another round?
He will actually straight up take a potion of healing from his desk. Like that bedside drawer.
I've got my little blue potion.
Little blue potion.
It's got a little V on it.
I will say, but you know, it really it turns me on that you come from such a wealthy family. Could you Show me your papers. And I cast suggestion on him.
I'm like mad about it, but I'm also okay with it. And of course he fails. And
Don't
of course,
shame me.
you know, to Gilwyn, there's this great moment where, of course, Gilwyn can notice that magic's being told, but there's a little bit of like Drow dirty talk, and he just gets out of the silk robes on the ground, completely naked, goes over to his papers and starts showing and explaining them. Mostly they're sort of business deals, which house needs what kind of thing. There seems to be several different types of Beast of Burden that they work on, but the most important one, the one that you would want to steal, would be essentially a license to trade under his name, which could be used as identification. And he's kind of like, you know, obliviously showing and explaining things, all while butt facing to Gil.
Nice. I would play into it like, oh, tell me more. Yes. Eventually, with the guys to like interrupt him mid-sentence and just start going at him, and like taking the papers and throwing them to the side at like Gil's feet, and like giving him a look while I grab the guy, like, please get those.
Gilwyn, can you give me a sleight of hand with advantage? Because this guy is distracted.
Better.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to notice as you kind of like, you know, scooch those papers up.
Scooch into the gooch.
Where else are you gonna hide it?
Bad.
The rhyme was there. Where else
And
is he gonna hide
why not take this as a great opportunity to take a quick little break?
Yeah, let's
And
all
just
go take
just
our little
generally
blue
wash off and be back soon.
Fair enough.